Hello and welcome. I'm here with Jason Elias, who runs Elias Recruitment in Sydney. Jason, how are you?
Morning, Tony. Lovely to be here with you. How's it all going down there where you are?
Very good. So, yes, I'm Tony Hall from Navigator Consulting. We sit on advisory boards and help grow recruitment companies, which is how I met Jason 22 years ago, Jason. So
it's flown, and you don't look a day older, Tony.
You're looking pretty good yourself, and you've got less grey than me. But Jason, I remember working with you 22 years ago. I just left EY to start my management consulting business, which was focusing just on helping grow recruitment companies. And Learned Friends, your employer of your first job in recruitment, was my first client. So you and I have a very connection. So I think it's great that we're having a discussion today and that we're talking about your 22 years in recruitment, and celebrating your birthday that's coming up. And you started your business on your birthday exactly 20 years ago.
20 years ago, and hasn't the industry changed in that time, Tony?
It certainly has, and Jason, you've done a lot. And we'll talk about this as we go through. But you've been you're an RCSA regional chairman right now, New South Wales and ACT. I'm really impressed because you're the only global chairman I know. You're a global chairman of the NPA, which is very, very impressive. And I've been often jealous of your trips to Orlando, Florida, and such glamorous destinations like that for your board meetings. And you've been a finalist in many industry awards. You've been a Pearl Mentor, and you've done a lot for the industry. So, congratulations and really well done for your contributions. And I've enjoyed working with you over the years and your support of Captain's Table and being a speaker at Captain's Table. You love helping to educate and share information with the industry, which is a bit of what we're going to do today, which is really
fantastic.
Look, over to you. Tell everyone here, what were you doing before recruitment, and then how did you lead into establishing a recruitment agency practice?
Sure. Well, like most in the industry, I kind of fell into recruitment. I didn't grow up wanting to be a recruitment agent. In fact, I didn't know such an industry existed. I was a smart kid at school that didn't like blood and did debating, so the obvious plan for me was to go to law school. So I did that. I went to UNSW. I was lucky enough to get a offer with Baker & McKenzie, which was then the largest law firm in the world. I worked both in Sydney office and overseas, and it was fantastic. There was all the glitz and glamour you could possibly want, but after a couple of years of it, I just did not wake up on a Monday morning busting to draft documents. I really liked people and I really liked interactions, and they were sort of the things that the partners were doing, but I just didn't have the patience to wait 5-10 years to get to that stage. I wanted to be out there, and at the tender age of, I think, 26 or 27, I left. I joined the industry. I worked with a family friend, got trained by both her and yourself, Tony, and then within a year thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I hung up my shingle on my 28th birthday, and we're hitting 20 years this week. So it's been a fantastic journey, and I owe a lot of people a lot of debt and gratitude.
No, that's great. And when you think about it, a lot of the skills that are required to be a great lawyer really do come into play in recruitment, don't they? You've got negotiation skills, obviously critical. You've got to be a good communicator. You've got to have good attention to detail. There's a lot of real synergies there. And it's really good that you have been able to leverage the skills that are required from being a good lawyer into being a very good recruiter for the legal industry. I think that gives you a lot of credibility. And just on that point, what do you think some of your success factors have been as a recruiter? What have you been doing that has helped you stand out as a great recruiter over the years?
I guess I'm lucky in a way that I've been working with great people, great clients, great candidates, and I've always had a very simple philosophy underpinning the way we work, and that's basically I would like to treat people the way I'd like to be treated, the old golden rule. I wasn't trained by any long-standing expert recruiters that had that sort of almost cowboy attitude. I was trained by professionals like yourself who come from professional service firms. And my theory was, you know, a lot of the time, particularly in the early days, I was self-taught and I was placing friends of mine. So there was a lot of importance going into making sure there was the right match for both the client and the candidate. In fact, my old law firm became my biggest client for the first few years, and it was a really good air of trust because we knew each other, we knew how each other worked, and I've tried to instill that in the philosophy of not just me, but now I have a team of consultants in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth to make sure we have that thing that we're not just selling a car or selling a notepad or something. We're creating relationships, and we have to stand behind those and make sure that people are happy in their jobs and the clients are happy with the quality of the talent that we place in their organisations. There's nothing worse than hiring a lemon, so we try to minimise that risk.
No, that's a brilliant philosophy, and you've clearly thought about it over the years. And it does take time to build a good business too, doesn't it? And to get it right. And I'm just wondering, during that time, we've seen a lot of change in technology and recruitment technology, which I know is a subject that's close to your heart, and you've spoken at our Captain's Table group about technology, and I really enjoy the way that you passionately and humorously talk about the tech that you use. Can you share with us a little bit, maybe the journey from 20 years ago when you first started in recruitment, technology and what you used then, and then now, where we're at now, what's inspiring you now as far as recruitment tech?
Yeah, so I'm old enough to remember the days where we actually hand-delivered CVs to clients in paper form. Then the fax came along, and a lot of our time was spent rushing around madly on Thursdays, drafting copy to send to the newspapers to print on a Saturday morning of the Herald or the Age or whatever it may be. So the world has changed a lot since then. There were server rooms full of places holding databases full of candidates. And I remember your old employer, consultant with Rhonda and my old boss, she used to insist that the temps would come by the office and pick up a check each Friday to get paid. My children wouldn't know what a check is. In fact, my son, I was cleaning up recently and I found one of those 3.5-inch floppy disks, and my son saw it and he said, "Wow, Dad, you 3D printed the save icon."
That's funny. I thought you were going to say you found a check from the 2001 that you went to the bank and they wouldn't accept it because checks aren't valuable anymore.
With inflation, it probably wouldn't be worth that much these days anyway. But yeah, no. So obviously the big game changers in my time were the job boards, and in Australia, Seek has pretty much dominated that to date. They're probably having their toughest time ever as we speak. And then players like LinkedIn coming in, allowing people, I guess there was a little less reliance on a recruiter's little black books because employers could find people themselves. The other major change was, particularly in my market, law firms bringing in people with expertise in recruiting. So in-housing that talent acquisition function rather than going straight out to agencies. What is also interesting is the turnover in the industry, and there are very few players that are still around from when I started. And I guess that's one of the advantages that me and people like Lisa Garzas, who also comes to Captain's Table, who I respect tremendously, we've met a lot of candidates over the years that we know what makes good, what makes bad, and we've got the connections. And, you know, if a client rings me up, it doesn't take that long before I either know somebody or could ring up somebody who can give us recommendations. And we all know word of mouth recommendations are going to be a lot better than randoms applying off a job board.
Totally. Yeah, that's the people part of recruitment, isn't it, versus the technology. So we've got great tools that we can improve the recruitment process and provide a greater experience for clients and candidates and our own staff, of course. And you've got a moment to tell us a few of some of the tools you really like at the moment as far as technology.
Yeah, look, I think central to any good recruitment agency is an efficient and cloud-based applicant tracking system. That's your one point of truth. I've been using JobAdder for a very long time. I love the fact that they're innovative. I love the fact that they're Australian. I know Brett and Darren quite well, and they're good operators. And the other thing that I do like about them is that they're very generous with the recruitment industry. They have extra space that they allow. Both you and I have hosted functions there,
Yeah.
and I think that's what it needs to be, symbiotic. So I'm a
Okay.
big fan of JobAdder, and I like their marketplace where other programs can slot in as well. Another few things that have just small things that have changed my day-to-day workflow, things like Calendly that have saved a lot of time in the backwards and forwards of managing appointments, and obviously the move, particularly I think hastened by COVID, to doing more Zoom and Skype interviews. My team has worked primarily remote for the last 5 years, so Zoom is something that's come naturally to us. And quite frankly, when we moved to remote, there was no change for us. It was pretty much seamless. But I think getting to interview and be able to move through Zoom has been a great technology, and I think the fact that the quality of the audio has improved over the years as well.
Oh, definitely. And I reckon it's actually brought us closer, because you and I wouldn't be able to get a meeting right now. It'd be too hard. We'd be on planes and all that sort of stuff. But now all we needed was half an hour to get together, and we're basically in each other's offices at the moment, which is great.
Yeah.
All right then. Now talking about the future, obviously we're going through difficult times for recruitment companies right now, and it's been challenging for everybody on so many different fronts. Really interested in your take on what you're seeing, because every business sees the market from a very unique perspective. You're seeing what's happening in the legal profession that we're not seeing, and we don't know. I'd be interested in hearing your view on what's happening there, but then also what's your take on the recruitment industry and how you've had to, adapt to the current environment. And then I want to ask you about how you see the way forward.
Yeah, sure. Lots of great content there that we can discuss, Tony. I think that this is unprecedented. It's a bit cliched now, but nobody's been in this situation before. You and I have been around long enough to remember the 2001 recession and then the GFC, but this is one of those things that has happened globally and is both an economic and a health-related thing. As you can see, I'm back in my office in Pitt Street, have been for close to 3 or 4 weeks. That's so I can be away from noisy children more than anything else. Yeah. But it does stem out a few lessons that I'd like to talk about. So in the legal market, there are, the same as any other market, there are winners and losers, including recruitment. So those who've been working healthcare, nursing, elder care, supply chain, logistics, call centres, those people have been actually fairly busy at the moment. Even tax accountants giving advice on JobKeeper and JobSeeker, those people have been fairly busy. The areas that are quiet, obviously, are areas like retail, travel, tourism, hospitality. Those have been fairly badly hit. Legal is one of those funny areas that some areas are cyclical and some accounts are cyclical. So you can imagine the property, the transactional, the M&A people have had less work on, but the insolvency, the turnaround, the commercial litigators, they've been busy. Employment lawyers are busier than ever. And also you'd find out areas like insurance really don't have much to do with the economic cycles. You know, you're not going to have more or less car crashes or slip and falls during a crisis like this. So insurance tends to be fairly stable. So I think law firms have definitely felt the brunt, and I think a lot of it has been in the earlier days of March and April, and I think there were some layoffs and some reduced hours. What's happening now is we're seeing green shoots. We're definitely noticing more roles coming through, and I'm anecdotally noticing a lot more people in the city. I think where things are getting really interesting is a lot of law firms traditionally wanted people to be on-site, on-premise to do work, and were very reluctant about the work from home option. Now they're being almost forced to adopt the work from home. Yeah. They're probably seeing that it isn't the bogey they thought it was, that their lawyers can have access to files. There is a degree of productivity that's probably better once you take out things like having to do commutes and water cooler talks and all the bits and bobs, endless meetings. And I think law firms will look long and hard when they're next renewing their leases to see if they want to take up huge floor plates, or whether they're a bit more flexible about having part of their workforce working from home and saving truckloads on rent. In the olden days, they used to have server rooms that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to keep in the city. That's long gone for most firms, and I imagine the need to have dedicated office space for every single employee in a CBD that costs a lot will probably go by the wayside too.
On that, I think that's a really interesting point, and everyone's asking this question about returning to offices and whether companies do need such big offices in the future and going forward. And you know, I can hear the flavour of what you're saying now, but do you have a view on the future of the traditional offices compared to 20 years ago when we crammed as many people as we could into an office?
Yeah, I think more people will work either from home or locally. So I can imagine there being a growth in centres, big suburbs, where, for example, employees can maybe drive, park their car, go in, and then drive home safely afterwards, rather than coming to the city where there's always going to be a mad dash on things like public transport. This disease may be with us for a long time, and obviously lots of people in close proximity presents a greater risk. You've got issues like in my building, we're only allowed one person at a time in a lift. Imagine being in a 40-story tower where you limit the number of people in a lift. It might take half an hour a day just to get to your floor. So I think people are going to think about things like staggered work hours, working from home, and being a little bit creative about how work goes. But it will definitely, this is irreversible. I think there will be trends that will change forever, and quite frankly, I think a lot of them will be quite positive.
For the good. And the adoption of technology, which is your passion, is being accelerated as another benefit, isn't it?
Yeah, I wish I bought shares in Zoom 2 months ago.
Oh, it was too late. It was too late. It had already run. Yeah. But, well, Jason, look, it's been great speaking with you. Just to finish up, I want to acknowledge and say congratulations for working so hard, building a great business, but also you, more than many people I know, have made a lot of extra contribution to others in the industry, and most of that unpaid as well. You've been so generous with your time, and I want to acknowledge that for everyone and say thank you very much. Tell us just to finish up, what drives you to do that, and the joy you get from contributing so much extra time.
Whatever I give, I get a lot more in return. I really enjoy being able to see people learn. I do a lot of training for the legal industry. I run the legal practice management course, people component for FMRC Legal, and just seeing people learn is great. Learning from them, and I probably learn more than I teach. And some of the friendships I've been able to make, I mean, I've been very fortunate particularly with NPA Worldwide. It is a global organisation, and it's allowed me to travel to places I never thought I would. And I've spoken at conferences from everywhere from New Orleans a couple of months ago to Singapore, Hong Kong, Bali, even Mexico. So it's opened a lot of doors, created a lot of friendships, given me a lot of learning, and I'm very grateful for that as well.
Well, very good. Look, it's been wonderful talking with you, and I wish you a very happy anniversary for the business and a happy birthday, and may the next 20 years be just as successful and fulfilling for you.
Thanks, Tony. I look forward to talking to you again in 2040.
Me too. It'll be great.
Cheers.